Okay, we're live now.
Okay. All right. So the homework reads, this week's readings focused on public leadership and leadership in crisis. Please discuss ways that you believe organizations can prepare leaders at all levels to respond in a crisis. And then consider in this discussion the communication issues faced by BP in the spill and the failures of crisis communications.
The BP was a really interesting read.
Yeah. So, ways that we believe organizations can prepare leaders at all levels to respond in a crisis. Now, I know that, so I've worked in hospital systems and at Boeing, and between those two, they've both been really exceptional about setting up crisis plans for major events. I don't know about I'm sure that there are crisis plans related to economic issues or other things, but typically we tend to prepare for major weather events or major, or an earthquake, some major or terrorist attack, something like that. Those are things. So the key from my perspective with those, what I've seen work really well is, well, developing a chain of command. So you have, like the military does it really well, a chain of command where everyone knows what their role and responsibilities are, and then drilling on those routinely, even when things are going just fine, making sure that people know what they're supposed to do and that they have some practice doing it, and then kind of controlling the message. If there's something major that's happening, like making sure that everybody knows who they're supposed to get information from and then who's supposed to report outside of the organization. Because I know that there have been a lot of cases where maybe something has happened at Boeing or something has happened at one of the hospitals, and we'll get an email pretty quickly from leadership saying, if there are any reporters or anybody contacting you to ask questions, direct them over here to this specific person, because they don't want everybody in the company responding on behalf of the company. They want to make sure that the message is kind of controlled and coming from one specific area. Those are just a couple of the thoughts that I had offhand.
Yeah, I feel like when you're talking about like relaying the message, making sure the message comes from one person, I feel like that could end up being like a bad game of telephone.
Yeah.
I know for our branches, since we work at a bank, but they try to ensure that we're all on the same page, because I work at a bank, so one of our big branches is getting robbed. Happens a lot of banks. So our whole entire company, even though there's 40 different branches, we all have one set expectation of what would be expected if the crisis would happen, and we go through many different things, robberies, if we have earthquakes or anything like that. And so besides that, our whole entire company has one set standard, so we all know, even if we go help at another branch, because our leaders have called into it, and we practice a lot. Every Monday morning we have a meeting and we go over at least one type of drill for our security, and our messengers towards each other. If we have any update, our leaders will email the entire operation letting us know if there's any update to any of our security or crisis management. That's good. Teams really prepared and it's organized.
Mm-hmm.
I think they recently deployed something at my work now where we gave our email addresses and phone numbers and all of that. I mean, they have all of that information anyway, but we have it in one consolidated database so that if there's any kind of an issue that's happening in the area where people work or live, a message will get pushed out by the company to everybody.
Awesome.
And so you get a heads up, like if I'm going to be traveling to that area as well, and it's in my travel record with the company, they'll push a message out to say, here's what's going on in this area, and then they'll ask you to respond to it and make sure that you got the message, so they can kind of figure out who's got the message and who have we not taken account for. So if it was a major incident, they'd want to know, do we have people that are unaccounted for, that are on shift or whatever, and they're trying to track people down.
Right.
In a really big company, it can be a little bit hairy.
Yeah. We have something kind of like that where an email is just sent out to the company, weather-wise or any safety reasons, even if there's like ice in a certain area of the parking lot, just an email that quick goes out, walk slow or look out for the ice in this area. We haven't gotten someone out there quite yet to remove it, but it's just good information to prevent any hazardous, dangerous things from happening.
Incident recently here in Arizona where a couple of Starbucks stores, I think people at 5 o'clock were robbed in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
And so they did a whole training session, and then we had to go over in person all of the procedures and then sign acknowledgements of what's expected, from headquarters if you're in a situation like that. And they changed some of the procedures to protect and prevent that from happening. So,
yeah.
Jeez.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When you brought up something like military and how they do well, I have to agree really well with that. My husband is being deployed right now. They take such measures when it comes to their communication and crisis management. They have, for each community, one ombudsman to talk to family members, so they know the communication is only coming from one person. And even when we as family members go out of town, they said, we want you to email us, let us know, because we want to make sure you're safe, and if there's something to happen, if there was a crisis on your husband's side, we want to know where you're at, because we don't like endless finding out from somebody else or the media keeping with chick word. We want to make sure that the message is coming straight from us. They're very organized with their communication when it comes to like crisis management, and it made me realize, how good I felt about that.
Yeah. And public perception, I think, can be impacted pretty mightily if you have a bunch of people kind of going rogue and answering questions and kind of taking control of the situation. Usually, I assume good intent, so people are usually trying to do the right thing, but they can convey a message that the company or the organization wouldn't necessarily want portrayed as on behalf of the company. So I think the military's got it right on right there.
That makes total sense. Yeah, it could portray a message that's not supposed to be, or it could be blown out of proportion when it's reality, not what's happening.
Yeah, maybe they only have like this little tiny perspective on what's going on in their specific work area that's impacted by this. The company has a more global strategy or whatever. Leadership has a more global view on it. So
I don't know if you guys have heard about the riots that are going on in it's called El Cajon, California. It's actually right around the neighborhood for me. And it kind of reminds me of that because I know there was a man shot by a police officer, so there was a riot going on right around the corner. And that's what kind of reminds me of, because they waited to speak, the police officer and the sheriff, until they were ready. They had a very organized statement, and they made sure that when they did speak, they wanted it to portray exactly what happened, facts, and they wanted it to be what they wanted, because portrayed as, not as what everybody thinks it as to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. The police too. They have a pretty good communication stream in terms of who's responsible for speaking out to the public. They don't have all kinds of random officers talking on the news. They usually have very specific guys on there. Yep.
Very true.
Those, I feel like, are other situations that need like a very specific plan.
Yep.
Definitely.
Like system outages. I think about I think I saw a little blurb on I don't know, CNN or something like that. Netflix went down for a couple of hours or something the other day. And I thought, that's not really a crisis in my world, but that's a crisis in their world. I'm sure that they have really specific procedures in place, like, oh my gosh, if we have a major failure in our servers or something like that, they have,
how do we fix
how do we
it?
deal with that? How do we
How do we go to public with
minimize
that? Yeah.
disruption and recover from the
Right. I saw it on Twitter, so I mean, they must have put out like a statement through there and through, just social media trying to get everyone to know they're working on it.
yeah.
But it's hard if you were just trying to watch Netflix and didn't book on your social media or anything.
Yeah.
But
I'm surprised my daughter didn't come running screaming in the room. It is a crisis for her. She's like, I'm 14. My shepherd.
Internet's down. Internet's down.
Yeah.
It's funny.
So BP, consider the communication issues faced by BP in the spill and the failures of crisis communication. Does anyone have any commentary on that?
I think they failed in kind of, if you look at the three different stages of the crisis theory, the pre-crisis, the response, and the post-crisis, I think they failed in all aspects.
Mm-hmm.
I think the pre-crisis, I think they were cutting corners from what I read.
Yep.
I don't know this from a personal experience, but they were cited many, many times previously for not following safety procedures and protocols. They weren't doing their inspections because it took too much time. And then I think they also failed in the response stage once it did happen, because they were pointing fingers at other companies instead of accepting responsibility and finding a solution.
Mm-hmm.
It did take them 4 days to even realize the well was still leaking.
Yeah.
And then post, they tried to cover it up, not only by pointing fingers, but from what I read, they cracked in sand to cover up the oil on the beaches, and they photoshopped pictures trying to prove that they weren't responsible and that it wasn't disastrous and, the issue that they thought it was.
Yeah, so there's a
Concerned about maintaining their reputation and taking responsibility and fixing the problem.
when ironically their reputation probably would have been drastically improved if they had handled it and been responsible about it, admitting when they made a mistake and laying out a plan to fix it instead of just covering it up.
right.
Yeah.
If they'd been truthful, I think more people would have still had respect for them.
Yeah, I agree.
So when I did some research on that issue, I was appalled by.
They had all these little warnings along the way, like all of these safety errors and issues along the way, and they just failed at all to address them. And
Right.
So that's poor leadership all the way around, I think.
13 and a half. Just so everyone knows.
okay.
So
What's that?
what's our time?
13 and a half.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
I'll post the video.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Avoid
Thank
crises.
you, ladies. Good luck with your grades and final projects.
All right. Thank you.
Soon, hopefully. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.